welcome to Happy Hour Animations, where we analyze good animation with even greater spirits. I'm your host, Becky, and this is my guest, Colton. He follows the 3Ds, Dad, Dick, and Dungeon Master.
Maybe not all in that order.
Maybe not in that order, but he does qualify for all three. So today we'll be talking about one of my favorite animations of all time, the TV series 2003 version, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Have to say it slow, otherwise it becomes one word. Teenage Mutant Turtles.
Greatly understated show in my opinion.
Oh, it is super underrated. But before we get into it, I am going to announce our keyword for drinking today, which is ninja. Alright, so to start
It's going to be an easy one.
It's going to be an easy one. We're probably going to be drinking a lot, so be careful, those of you at home. So to start off, give me a quick synopsis of the show, so anyone who hasn't seen it knows what we're getting into.
Well, I mean, the obvious first part you want to start off with is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everyone knows them. They've been around for years. It's actually got a funny history behind that. They were originally just designed to just sell the toys, and then people fell in love with the idea of the Turtles so much from, like, the comics and everything else that it just blew up like crazy, leading to the shows, the original 90s show. That then brings us around to the show that we're talking about today. 4 Turtles. Believe they were just owned by, like, some kid in a jar. Just had kid carrying this jar full of turtles, walking down the street in New York when, wouldn't you know it, a truck carrying a bunch of chemical waste crashed right in front of him, causing him to drop the jar of turtles. Turtles fell into what is known as the ooze. The ooze then dripped the turtles down into the sewer, where it also then infected a rat. The rat grew, along with the turtles, mutated into semi-anthropomorphic human-like creatures, I guess would be the easiest way to describe it. And the rat, being a rat that had been around for a while, kind of an older rat to begin with, began taking these turtles under his wing. Then there is a whole other subplot of how that rat originally was owned by a kung fu master who taught him all the ways of ninja. It's a very ridiculous series, but with a lot of heart.
So much heart.
On a slight little tangent, one thing that I've always found kind of funny, I don't know if this is 100% the original Turtles comics, but you know Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
So, fun fact, I don't know if this 100% canon or just one comic, but the wreck that gave Daredevil his powers, canonically, is also the wreck that created the Turtles.
Oh.
So, when the truck crashed, it was because it was about to hit Matt Murdock. And the ooze that gave him all his powers and everything like that led to the Turtles as well. Which is ironically where the name of the Foot Clan comes from. Funny enough.
Oh.
So, like, because in the Daredevil, it's the hand and all that. Then the Foot Clan, foot, puns, whatnot. Yeah. That's pretty much all I got in terms of, like, basic history of, like, where the Turtles originally started from and how we got to where we started in the show.
Well, that is a lot of crazy, insightful information. I had no idea about the Daredevil stuff, so that is really interesting, actually. I think that comic actually went for about 40 years? I think it was 40. It was a really long time.
It was really long.
I would not be surprised if that crossover happened in the original. But to give a quick synopsis, there's a little bit convoluted.
Sorry.
It's about 4 mutant turtle brothers who are ninjas raised by the Ratman Splinter. And, oh yeah, that's right. And basically their adventures to defend themselves and stay hidden and protect New York City, which is where their home is at, in the sewers. So to start off with talking about our opinion on the show now, what was your first impression watching the series? Did you grow up watching I think it was 80s. I think it was made in the 80s initially. Did you grow up with the 80s version initially?
Personally, no. I didn't really know too much about the Ninja Turtles until, I think it was Foxbox, if not 4Kids TV.
4Kids TV.
4Kids TV started airing it. The only exposure I'd had to Ninja Turtles at that point was I think I had saw the second movie at some point, and the airport that I lived nearby at the time had one of those Turtles in Time arcade machines.
Okay.
And I played the shit out of that. That was fucking fun. But until the show showed up on 4Kids, I had never really known too much about the Turtles or anything like that.
Yeah.
Boy, was I in for a ride, though.
So I actually, I grew up with the 2003 version and the 1980s version. If I was first introduced to the 80s version because my mom went through this whole binge of showing me all these old shows. Gem and the Holograms, Thundercats, Teenage Turtles was one of them. See, I told you, it becomes all one word when I say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, take one big drink. So I actually grew up with both versions, and when I first saw the 2003 version, I was in shell shock. I was like, what the hell is this? Because it's so... The 80s version is so vibrant, but then it takes this stark change in the 2003, and it follows the comic a lot more closely. I haven't read all the comic, but I have read a good enough portion of it to know that they actually follow the comic decently well. They take a few liberties, but nothing I would say too drastic like the more recent version, I think in 2012.
I haven't really touched it.
I did, actually, and I would actually love to do that analysis at some point and compare all of the versions of the Turtles. But
that would be interesting. I'd definitely love to sit down and take a look at some of those other older shows that I missed, because all I ever touched was the 2003 show and that movie that came out at one point.
Yeah, as far as character development goes in the 2012 version, they are the ones who did it the best. I will say that. I think they did the family brother aspect the best out of all of them. But that is not to say that the 2003 version didn't also do a really good job. I think they did a phenomenal job. But where it really shined to me was the fact that they kept it as dark as it was, really. For a 4Kids channel, that was so uncommon to see darker shows like that.
Characters would literally just die and never come back or be brought back through some sort of magical means. And that wasn't even the worst fate for some of them. Just the ever constant abuse of Baxter Stockman.
Oh my god.
Is just, this man starts as a brilliant scientist who is building these Mouser robots for the Shredder, the villain of the series. And these robots are supposed to go sweep the sewers to kill mice and other such pests. Unfortunately, running into our turtle boys hanging out down there. After they get destroyed by the turtles, Baxter is considered a failure. So, when you reprimand your employees, do you give them a stern word? Do you cut their pay? Or do you brutally mutilate them? That's Shredder's option for you. Dude starts off by taking the guy's eye. Then, when he fails again, he's in a frickin' wheelchair. After that, he's practically just a torso. Then he gets to just a head. Then just a frickin' brain in the jar. Then by the end of the thing, the poor guy just wants to frickin' live again, so he makes himself a clone body, puts himself into the clone body, and then that fails and starts turning him into a freaking zombie. The guy is a brutal history. Just that one guy alone just shows this show was not willing to pull punches. It wanted you to feel things, and it wanted you to feel scared or confused or worried about your main characters. They really actually took the time to set up stakes where a lot of kid shows don't really do that. They just point at the bad guy and go, that's the bad guy, he's going to do bad stuff, we better stop him. And that is not the case with the Turtles story. There was whole backstories and arcs going on with the villains as well as the Turtles themselves. It's really impressive what they pull off.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And with that, I actually I'm gonna compare again, but the Shredder in this version is so commanding. He is absolutely the most powerful villain, I think, out of all of the Turtle series. I think he is the most commanding villain. He is fucked up dude, really fucked up dude, and it's interesting how they were able to convey that even though they were on a kids channel. Again, the same way they kept it dark throughout the series. This dude just stayed pure fucking evil throughout the whole series, and I was so impressed that they managed to keep him such a commanding force in something that's threatening with high stakes that comes with him, kind of like you said earlier.
Oh, immensely. Like, just the first time that Shredder is truly introduced, the entire time beforehand, you meet Orokusaki, the businessman that the Shredder pretends to be.
Yeah.
And he's... The introduction for this character is great, because they don't just straight up go, oh, this is the Shredder. It's like a 2-episode build-up. And it's more about how Leonardo, for those who don't know the lingo, Leo is, he's questioning his I guess the best way to describe it is his faith in his master, and his family and everything else. And he starts getting these messages from the Foot Clan, who they've been fighting for the longest time, but we've never actually met their boss. Now the boss is actively reaching out to Leo, and he's like, hey, we could probably work together. We could make a lot of money. We could make the city a lot safer of a place if we do this thing. Only to find out later that, of course, he's an evil, murdering psychopath. But the point I'm trying to get at is this leads to the Turtles ending up squaring off with a bunch of ninjas up on the roof, sending a message to the Shredder before they really meet the guy that we're not interested, screw off. Then the whole show's tone almost seems to change. Like, I was going back and watching some of the clips before we started this just to refresh myself, and my God, the way that the Shredder is introduced, the boys have been fighting their way through all these different ninja left and right. They just beat, I don't remember his name, but the big Hulk guy, the blonde hair, Hun. Yeah, they just kicked Hun through a window.
Yeah.
And they're battered, they're beaten, they're not looking great, but you think they've won, and that's when the Shredder chooses to show himself. And the intro music they have, the lighting with his glowing red eyes, surrounded by even more foot ninja, just the feeling of terror and dread, like, oh god, the Turtles are fucked.
Yeah.
It just, like, is so prevalent in that scene. It's incredible what they do for just a kid. I feel bad saying just a kid show, because just because it's a show that was intended for kids doesn't mean that it can't be good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I feel bad saying that, but for an animation, especially during the early 2000s, where we were kind of getting a lot of let's say subpar shows, a lot of forgettable.
We were getting a lot of subpar shows, and not to mention this was produced on 4Kids, and 4Kids did such a good job at butchering good shows.
They were so good at being so bad.
Ultimate Muscle is one of those. Oh my god! When it was
well, to be fair, Ultimate Muscle also consisted of one of the wrestlers being a man literally made out of an ass. So like, there's only so much they could ruin there.
Have you read the comic, though? Have you read the comic and seen the Japanese version?
I have seen a little bit of Kinnikuman, which is the series that predates Ultimate Muscle. So, like, Kid Muscle's father, it's his series.
Yeah.
And Kinnikuman gets dark.
Oh, but both of them do. Both of them do.
Yeah, I guess, to be fair, I only saw Ultimate Muscle through the 4Kids. So.
Yeah. I actually went out of my way to find the Japanese version, because I did like Ultimate Muscle as a kid, but that's not the point.
Yeah, no.
Good show, if you can tolerate the 4Kids aspect of it, but...
There's some goofy stuff in there.
Yeah, 4Kids definitely did a number on quite a few shows, so to see a show that came out as well as the 2003 version of TMNT... it really was kind of a feat, honestly, and to resemble such a dark comic so well, it's astounding. And that actually brings me to my second point that I would like to talk about, because there's something I want to talk about with it. I want to talk about Donatello, because he's my favorite turtle. Who's your favorite turtle? Oh,
honestly, like, it kind of goes back and forth. So when I was a kid, I was absolutely 100% a Michelangelo fan. I loved being the goofy guy who is kicking a dude in the face and then throwing out one-liners to the point that still permeates in me when I'm playing like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. I'll try and play like an edgelord badass and then just part way in, his face looks stupid. I can't help it. So like, but as I've gotten older, I really got into the character of Raphael. Mainly just because I mean, if you know the general story archetype, you got your leader and your lancer and then the funny guy and maybe the healer or something like that. And it kind of varies here and there. But Raphael is one of the most interesting lancer-style characters I've ever seen, in that he doesn't feel like he is 100% like, so, for example, when I say lancer, I mean a guy who is always trying to be the big hero, but never quite gets there. So, like, your Kaiba in Yu-Gi-Oh! Your Shadow the Hedgehog in Sonic, your Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, so the guy who's, like, trying to work his way up. The thing about Raphael is he's not always that archetype. He is very much the guy who will run off and do his own thing, but it's never, like, malicious or anything like that. He really sucks with his emotions. And as I got older, being a person dealing with a lot of anxiety and stress that manifested as anger, I kind of related to that a lot. And what I've found with Raphael is, like, out of all the turtles, he is the one who cares the most. And I find that kind of beautiful, coming from the guy who's everyone looks at and goes, that's the angry asshole. That's the guy who sucks. But the reason why he's always so pissed is because he just cares too much. He gets very upset over things because he's just too emotional. Yeah. And I always kind of appreciated that, being someone who kind of was growing up with a similar thing like that. Yeah. That and the fact that he just goes on some fun, interesting stories with, like, Casey Jones and everything like that.
Yeah, I love that character dynamic there. I'm going to share a super embarrassing fun fact about myself. So when I was a kid, I was addicted to 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Really?
That's a drink. I was addicted. I loved it. That was what I woke up for on Saturday mornings. But the fun fact is, during the time, I did not have, I guess, much of a male figure in my life to really define my taste in men. So it became my favorite turtle, Donatello, and now I pretty much just date Donatellos throughout my life. That's my type in dudes now. It's just Donatello.
I can see it. So, I can see it.
Probably not something I should broadcast, but it's kind of funny, honestly. I think it's funny, and I just subconsciously realize it. Or maybe there was something before that, but because that was such a prominent part of my life, was getting up to watch this series, I love Donatello. I had such a big crush on him. 6-year-old me, I was like, wow, look at that teenage beefcake turtle. He's so smart.
I totally get it, though. Like, it wasn't Donatello or any of the Ninja Turtles, though. At the time when I was younger, I thought I was straight. As I've gotten older, I've come to realize I'm bi, I guess would be the easiest way to describe it. Long, boring story. Don't need to waste the podcast listeners on that. But, crap, I forgot where I was going with it. Oh, yeah. So, growing up, like, Sailor Moon, I had the biggest thing for Sailor Mars. And, like, the girl who would, like, was, like, very standoffish and speaks her mind, kind of, like, She ironically enough was also kind of a Lancer type. Now that I think about it, I think I just have an affinity for Lancers. I like the number 2,
number two guys.
not the one who gets the top pedestal, but that guy on the side who's pretty strong. He's not the strongest, but he's pretty cool.
I like the bottoms that everyone forgets about. The smart geeky ones that sit behind their computer and they do all the amazing feats. Because let's be fucking honest for a minute. Donatello has pulled off, like, majority of their wins. He has had some huge contribution to it. Or their getaways. Like,
especially in the 2003 edition.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I don't think he ever gets enough credit for the things that he did, especially in that series, or really the future series, because I think they started working on that a little bit more with Donatello, because he was definitely the most forgettable turtle before the 2003 version.
Even though that was the case, though, I would still argue he had some great moments. Like that one episode with the where they go down and they deal with the mutants. The other mutants even deeper in the sewer.
Yeah.
And how he ends up pretty much by himself and ends up figuring out how to cure the mutants before they end up taking him out and everyone else out, and just his whole dilemma with having to actually take the lead, and he's never had that position before, and him struggling with that. He has some moments here and there.
Oh no, he definitely does. In the 2003 version especially. Before that, not so much. But that actually gets me to a perfect place to talk about what I wanted to talk about, getting into this whole thing, was a specific Donatello character arc. It was when they all separated into these different realities, and his was in that apocalyptic future where Shredder won, if you remember. And, let's see, I think Leonardo was dead, so was Splinter. Both of them were dead in that reality. Casey was also dead. Casey Jones was dead.
I think Mikey's actually the dead one there, because I remember very specifically Leo and Raph arguing with each other, where like Leo's wearing like he's wearing like a like Matrix outfit with the Morpheus sunglasses.
You're right.
And Raph is missing an eye.
But it doesn't even matter because they all die at the end anyway.
I missed that part, apparently. That's rough.
In that episode, the rest of the turtles except Donatello dies because Donatello came back young and they're all shocked about it. And he built this like mecha suit to finally beat the Shredder. So him and April were able to start building up the new reality, which of course they didn't get back to because Donatello flashed out of that reality. But as a 6-year-old kid, I was 6 when that episode aired. I was 6 years fucking old, and I was like, what the fuck just happened?
That's fair.
I didn't even know what to say. I just sat on the ground and I was fucking shell-shocked. I just stared at the TV and I was like, what the hell just happened? No! I kind of wanted to cry. I didn't cry, but I wanted to.
That's fair. It's fair. This show has a lot of moments like that, though. Like, for example, the one episode where I think it was the episode where Leo gets knocked out. Mm-hmm. He gets really beat up bad, and they all go back to Casey's cabin out in the woods. Yeah. And in there, they're all reminiscing on like past times they've had with Leonardo, and there's this one moment where Raphael starts talking about like how he never would quit on them even when they were younger, and you can't quit now, damn it, and he's like crying and stuff. And I remember being a kid watching that and going like, I'm crying over turtles.
It definitely had that show had a lot of like really strong moments in it. Maybe not powerful, but definitely very strong moments, and I think they conveyed it pretty well considering what the developers or the writers had to deal with from 4Kids. There were so many restrictions, so I really think they did a great job with that. But we are at a point now where I do have to talk about my sponsor just a little bit. So today we have a message from Mr. Sheldon Incorporated. So I'm just going to go ahead and read what he gave me real quick. This episode is brought to you by Mr. Sheldon Incorporated. Have you been wondering what to do about those times when you don't feel great, looking for someone to plan your parties for you? Well, fear not, because Mr. Sheldon Inc. will plan your party for you. It will take all the stress out of planning, just leave you with the fun. Whether it is Labor Day, Halloween, or otherwise, take stress out. Just focus on the fun with Mr. Sheldon Inc. Get 20% off your booking when you use the promo code HEADUPMYASS at MrSheldonsDarkWeb.com. Book it today. Thank you, Mr. Sheldon, for that wonderful commercial break. I think everyone is going to enjoy it. I was hoping for something kind of reminiscent of Election, 1999, great film.
Sorry, I tried to stare at the camera creepily the whole time, and my eyes started watering, and so I look like I've been crying.
It was a powerful commercial. I did a great
emotional
job at reading that. Thank you. I appreciate the emotion that came from everyone while I was doing that sponsorship.
It touched me.
Hopefully I get some good ad revenue on that one.
It touched me. Much like how the turtles touched me when I cried earlier, to clarify that kind, not the creepy kind of touching.
Don't say that again.
No, never say that again. I regret saying it immediately after. But when you were bringing up the past moment with Donatello, that reminded me of something that I actually wanted to discuss. April ONeil.
Yes.
I think her usage in this show was so much better than I've ever seen her portrayed other places.
I definitely agree with that. Even the newer versions, I think she is portrayed so much better.
In the other shows, she is very much just girl.
Yeah.
And in the 90s show, girl to be kidnapped and chased after and all that. But in this show, she starts as a journalist and then just eventually turns into this amazing tech guru who's like hacking into government stuff. And
she actually started out as a assistant researcher for Baxter Stockman in this version.
Sorry. That's right. I was thinking of a different show entirely.
No, you're good.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But she starts out kind of almost like a Peter Parker in a way, in that she's this smart girl who gets roped into something that she was not ready to fuck around with. Oh yeah, that's right, because she's the one who finds the Mousers in the first place. Yeah,
that was first episode, either first or second episode that happens.
Yeah, so the Mousers that I mentioned before that Baxter Stockman made to try and sweep the sewers and everything, it was revealed later that they were also designed to eliminate the Turtles, because the Turtles had been screwing around with the Foot Clan ninjas. And
so I'm gonna key my way in here real quick. So actually, they were initially invented to chew through walls and get into banks and steal the money and shit.
You know what? You are absolutely right. I'm dumb.
It's okay. I've watched the show so many times, and I've had to rewatch the first episodes, which I always hate watching the first episodes, but I've rewatched them so many times, I just know. But they were initially made, they supposedly to take care of the New York City rat problem, but then they were actually made to steal from banks, and then they later became forced to deal with for the Turtles. Right,
because the Turtles weren't really caught at that point. They just, the Purple Dragon Gang had been getting some of their thugs beat up, and I don't think they had even met the Foot Clan until the first episode, right?
I don't even think they met them then. I think it was a little bit before they actually met the Foot Clan. I want to say it was later in the season that they actually became more familiar with them, and I could be a little bit shaky on this, but it did take a little bit.
If I can remember right, that's how it worked out, is April found out what the Mousers were actually supposed to be for breaking into the bank, and Baxter's like, well, can't let you live now, get her.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to her running into the sewers, and then in turn finding the Turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, hey, that's a quick recap for you guys.
That was probably a better one, honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, the entire first episode, you get a good idea of exactly what the Turtles are going to be fighting for, like, the entire first or second season. Is the Purple Dragons, which are run by Hun, the muscle-bound man we mentioned earlier, who, he's basically a mafia lord, but he still works for Shredder. So, like, the purple dragons are technically still just more Foot Clan, but they're more a bunch of thugs doing street crimes rather than what the Foot Clan do, which is espionage, breaking into shit, stealing shit, murdering people, you know, the regular bad guy stuff.
Yeah.
And then you got your Mousers from Baxter Stockman, which are generally tiny little robots. I think they get bigger at some point. I might be wrong, though.
I think they stay about the same size, if I'm not mistaken. I can't really remember.
I forget for sure, because the more thing that I remember with Baxter Stockman is the fact that he becomes a freaking brain in a jar. Yeah. That sticks with you as a kid.
What do you think about the conversion that they made between the first season, fifth season? All of that was pretty consistent with each other, but then it went into the sixth and seventh season where they did that into the future bullshit, and they did that for a toy. They wanted a toy line. Just to clarify, so it definitely lost the dark aspect. They gave the turtles pupils for some reason.
Yeah, the eyes were, well, was it the future or the show where they come back from the future where they started getting pupils?
It was when they went into the future and then they met like April and Casey's like great grandson or something.
What was his name? Oh, I used to know his name. I liked him as a character.
I'm glad that you liked him, because I liked almost nothing about those seasons.
Well, the future seasons honestly just feel like filler, because none of it has any real high stakes, because you are in the future. This is stuff that very likely, if you go back into the past, you could change entirely, and none of it ever happens to begin with. Yeah. So, like, the threat, the interesting part of Turtles exploring the future and stuff was done in, like, the first 2 episodes, and then they had 2 whole seasons. Yeah. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
But, Cody, I think was his name, right?
That's
April's
probably right.
Kid. I liked him as a character, because, at least at the time, he was very much me as a kid. Of the adults are always telling me I'm not allowed to go do things. I want to prove myself. Your basic hero protagonist kind of thing that everyone can relate to very easily. But what I liked about him was that he could actually back it up. Because for most kids who are like, I don't believe what the adults say, and I'm going into like a Morty from Rick and Morty voice there. Oh, Rick! But I want to be the big hero. They always sucked. Like, they were always like, yeah, I'm gonna be the big hero. Wait, why are you holding me back? Oh, 'cause I can't do anything? That's fair. But, like, Cody actually, like, held his own for a while. He wasn't a fighter, but he had a fair amount of tech on him that kept him up to pace. And oddly enough, that led to, now that I think about it, a lot of moments with Donatello. Yeah. Because Cody and him grew kind of a bond because of their love for technology and everything. Yeah. So even then, even in some of the worst parts, they still had some good characterization in there, I would say. Yeah. I still would argue that it was still felt like pretty much filler the whole time, but I would say that some of it had some merit. Yeah. And then after they got back from the future, I stopped watching, so I have no idea.
It didn't get better. But with that, what's your overall favorite character arc, or just favorite aspect of the show?
Favorite aspect of the show or favorite arc? Favorite aspect would definitely be, well, honestly, growing up, it was the action, for sure. I loved weapons. I loved those sort of things.
Do you think it aged well?
Going back, thinking on it before I went back to go watch some of the clips, I didn't think it aged well, because I was like, nothing's as good as I remember it as a kid, right? Yeah. But then I went back to it, and like, the one thing that is glaring that always sticks out to me is the fact that Raphael and Leonardo never actually use the pointy parts of their weapons on anything that's human. Yeah. And, like, I get that. You can't really cut a dude in half on kids' TV. Yeah. Though they would straight up murder characters in that show. Like, the Shredder stabs one dude straight up in the back, and he just falls over dead for the rest of the thing. He's like, well, damn. But that's a villain. You can't really have that from the heroes. Yeah. So that sticks out to me. But what I grew to appreciate is how they got around that. Yeah. So, like, there's a lot of times where Leo's, like, facing down a guy, and instead of going to swing at him with a sword, he's chopping down a water tower to knock that down and flood them all away. Or he's taking his sword to flick dust up in the air to distract him and then kick him in the face. The versatility of the combat was always... I really appreciated that, because this is going to sound really fucking lame, but I am technically trained in martial arts and everything. And the one thing you'll learn when you start fighting, when you start training it all, is that everyone has a plan when you go into a fight. Everyone knows exactly what they're going to do until you get punched in the face. And once that happens, that's when it finally clicks to you what you really need to be doing in a fight. And that is use anything and everything to your advantage. Yeah, obviously training and stuff can help, but if there's a stool next to you and the guy next to you doesn't have a stool, pick it up and use it. You know? So using versatility around you has always been a thing that I've appreciated. So to watch a show where I'm like, he could be cutting them, but the way they're working around this is still really good and entertaining. So I'm willing to live with it.
What fighting class? What kind of fighting class was it?
I practiced in Taekwondo mainly.
Oh, okay, me too. I had a master who was actually from South Korea. He competed in like national tournaments. He never taught us that. He was like, "This is how you break someone's neck."
The thing with a lot of martial arts studios and stuff that I found is there is practical lessons you can actually take from it, and then there's a lot of fluff that they throw in there to draw in people, get attention, get kids in, because I want to be the cool flippy guy. And like, while that totally exists, you can look into taking like XMA classes or stage combat classes and stuff like that, can teach you how to do all the crazy stuff. I just wanted to learn how to throw a punch right, because when I would throw a punch, it would kind of come out like that. Like I'm smacking with my wrist.
I wouldn't think Taekwondo would be the one for that, considering it's like based on speed, agility, and mostly like kicks.
Yeah, I know I am definitely 100% not the body type for it. But if I could bring it to another 4Kids show, just for a sec, one other show they dubbed was One Piece. And One Piece is a pirate anime about pirates, basically, and it's not too important to this conversation, but there's one character who I really grew accustomed to loving, which was Sanji. And Sanji's whole thing is he's a cook.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to get his hands dirty with blood, so he doesn't fight with his fists. He only kicks. So I always thought kicking and stuff like that was way cool.
Okay.
So Taekwondo kind of leaned into, I'm like, yeah, I'd be down to learn how to kick somebody in the face. Yeah, let's do it. So now I can. It's not as practical as you would think, but it's definitely something that I do not regret doing, just because of the shows I watched as a kid. I watched One Piece and saw them doing fights. I saw Turtles doing fights and watching all that, and I'm like, I wanna know how to do that. I want to be that big hero someday. So I jumped into martial arts and all that stuff. And then I got in. I'm like, I'll never be that hero someday. But I know how to punch now.
Well, we are running out of time right now, unfortunately, because I love talking about the Turtles.
I totally understand.
The Ninja Turtles.
Honestly, I feel like we could make a whole podcast based around this one show alone.
Oh, absolutely. I could talk about this show for hours. But is there any last things you would like to talk about or jump in there?
I will throw out a weird nerd cred and say Yuzaki Yojimbo is my favorite Turtles character. And the few people who understand, you know. And other than that, I would say give this show a shot if you never got around to it. It's got a lot of seasons, so there's a lot of show to watch. But it's worth the watch. And, overall, like, if I were to give the show, like, some sort of, like, arbitrary score or something like that.
Yeah, would you give it a 1 out of 10?
If I were to give it a 1 out of 10, I'd give it, like, a 9.
9?
It,
nice.
like, it definitely has some moments that aren't perfect.
Yes.
But it still is great entertainment and doesn't feel like a dumb kid show holding your hand, patting your back of the bad guy.
Jingling keys in front of your face.
It felt like, it was definitely, for me, growing up, the first show that felt like it was taking me seriously. If that makes sense.
No, I agree. I think that's a really great point. And with that, I do highly recommend anyone who's interested in this show, even just from the discussion, look into this series. The whole series is absolutely fantastic. I think each Each series or version of the Turtles deserves a watch, unless it's Michael Bay. Fuck you.
I mean,
but
to be fair, I feel like that man must wake up and say "fuck you" to himself when he looks in the mirror every day.
I don't think so. I'm gonna have to say I don't think.
You think
so
he's
on
that conceited?
One. Yes, that's what I've heard. Cameraman over here, his dad's a film engineer, and his dad has worked for Michael Bay, and he is that much of a prick.
That's. You know what, I'd say disappointing, but no, that fits.
Yeah, he fits the description. But with that, please do watch Teen Mutant Turtles, and if you're just going to limit yourself to just one of the series, make it the 2003 version. It is probably the apex of all the Turtles. So let's end the night. Enjoy the rest of your drinks if you still have any left. I still do, unfortunately. Stay safe, please, and enjoy the buzz.